Hi everyone, this is Matt Likes Comics. I am here today to talk about a character. We're going to have a little bit of fun today. We're going to do some character searches. The character is from the American Comics Group and by the name of Nemesis. Nemesis was a superhero that they tried to do in the late 60s, close to the end of the run. So, before we get going, I want to do a quick shout out to Nate at Hall Yeah Comics. He has a very interesting channel. He likes a lot of the same things I do. So I think you should go follow him, give him a like and a subscribe if you can. He's got some very interesting jokes to go with his analysis, and quite simply, it is a great thing. He's got a good one. Okay, next up, we shall begin. The American Comics Group was a company that was started in 1939 and existed as the American Comics Group from 1943 till 1967. For the majority of its time, it was owned by a gentleman by the name of Benjamin W. Sanger, who founded the company, as well as Mr. Iger. We all know that name, Fred Iger, who comes across from the Iger Studios. And later in the history of the company, a small percentage was owned by Harry Donenfeld over at DC Comics, because it was part of the deal to have American Comics Group be distributed by independent news agency. Okay, in 1948, they began to publish a book called The Adventures into the Unknown, which became known as the first horror comic to follow the genre on a regular monthly basis. Originally pretty dark, and like a lot of the other pre-code horror, you had a lot of stuff that was interesting and could be dark, could be very, very, very deep and very disturbing. They changed, of course, once the code kicked in, to a little more tamer on the horror side and a lot more of the sci-fi elements coming in. Now, Adventures into the Unknown was part of a trio of magazines the American Comic Group used, published at the time. You had Adventures into the Unknown, you had Forbidden Worlds, and you had Unknown Worlds. All of them had similar themes, although the Unknown Worlds was more always on the scientific side of the strange, and Forbidden Worlds had a taste of both. Originally, as I said, they were really, really, I want to say difficult reads in the sense if you were scared easily, but they're fantastic stories, and I'm just getting into this period and into these comics, and I've loved everything I've read so far. In 1964, with the as superheroes, the Silver Age has begun, and superheroes were becoming more and more the norm. ACG decided to go into the superhero genre. Now, their most famous hero was a larger child by the name of Herbie, who was Herbie Popnecker, who became known as the Fat Fury in a few issues of his own book. And those issues are quite popular today, actually. I see that they go for slightly more than some of the other ACG books on places like eBay and my comic shop. However, Herbie did not appear in Adventures of the Unknown. He started in Forbidden Worlds, I believe, and eventually took over that book closer to the end of the run, I believe. If I'm wrong, please put it in the comments, because I didn't quite write that down. Okay? Here is Adventures of the Unknown 163. This was the first issue of the run before Nemesis. But what it does is it introduces a character fairly unknown. But he's actually a guy who is a bit of a coward, who gets drafted into the Earth Army, for lack of a better phrase, because an unknown alien race has decided to invade Earth and take over. Now, this guy is really afraid to die. So he ends up going to the aliens and selling out so that he could be the only one that lives. But once he realizes the aliens are going to enslave everybody, including his lady love back home, or kill them outright, like himself, he finds out once he's outlived his usefulness, he changes and becomes brave and goes back to the Earth Army, admits to what he's done, and ends up being forgiven and becomes a hero on Earth. He ends up dying in the battle, but he's never forgotten and becomes a martyr, and his girlfriend back home becomes proud of him. This was the first attempt at a superheroic story in ACG. Now, the same month, approximately a week after the issuing of this book, there was another hero by the name of Magic Man that came out in Forbidden Worlds. Nemesis was supposed to be first, but his was delayed, and that's why they had the filler issue. His stories were delayed slightly, and that's why the filler issue was there with regards to the superhero soldier guy. And therefore, Magic Man ended up coming out first, when in reality Nemesis was supposed to be first. However, that is neither here nor there. It's just something that Stephen and I have been talking about over on Alan's channel, and I wanted to bring it up so that we could put this to rest. Adventures of the Unknown 164. This is the first appearance of Nemesis, and his name is all over the cover. Notice the hourglass, which is similar to a DC hero by the name of Hourman, perhaps. What Nemesis is interesting is his power set is almost exactly like the Spectre. He is he began life as Steve Flint, FBI agent, who gets killed in the line of duty while fighting the mob. He convinces the people in the Unknown that he needs to go back to Earth to continue fighting crime because he wants to stop these unsavory elements from taking over in his town. Now, obviously, if you remember anything about the Spectre, you'll know he went back unwillingly. Well, in this case, Nemesis, Mr. Flint, had to convince them to let him go back. He does, and he goes back and he takes them out. What we do discover in the first issue, as he takes out everybody and fights the mafia, is we learn that Nemesis has two weaknesses. He is not able to be in water, like underwater, completely submerged, and he cannot be with a mirror. A mirror will sap, the reflection in the mirror will sap his power, and he will basically be as weak as Superman is with kryptonite. We discover this in the book by the bad guy by the name of Garati. Garati is the mafia boss who is running, who had Mr. Trent killed and turned into this being in the first place, and he is currently running the organized crime in the town. I don't remember the town's name. I didn't write it down. If anybody out there knows it, please write it in the comments, and I will be happy to maybe add that into the description later. In the next issue of Adventures of the Unknown 156, my apologies, that I don't have every issue of this run, of the Nemesis run. I do have a few, and those are the ones that I'm going to cover. So in 156, Gorbati, who actually was killed at the end of the first story in 154, is back on Earth as because he had gone to hell and convinced Satan to let him come back to Earth to fight Nemesis. And sure enough, he came back and found a former member of an army that the Americans fought against in the Second World War, and who had created a large gun to wipe out and destroy things, and he was trying to help him out. He decided to try to take out Nemesis to make sure that the Nazis' gun could work. It didn't work, and Nemesis finally destroys Gorati permanently by destroying his spirit as well. It seems that Nemesis has whatever power he needs on the spot in order to fix the thing. He can fly, he can disguise himself, he can take over bodies like dead man, he can make his body turn solid, he can, similar to Jim Corrigan, he can do a hell of a, he flies, he goes through walls, he does anything he can. What the significance of 156 though is that the devil gets beaten because a character gets introduced that ends up becoming the love interest of Nemesis by the name of Lita Ravelli. Now, Lita Ravelli is descended from another woman named Ravelli from the 14th century, that's Satan. By the way, he's never really called Satan in the book, he's just the bad guy. Satan fell in love with the person back in the 14th century, and that love made him weak and easily defeated. And it was the defeat of Satan that led to the ghost of Garati being able to be destroyed and the destruction of the Nazi weapon. Lita sticks around for a few issues as the love interest, but the St. Peter prototype, I want to call him, who is Nemesis' boss up there, says that he can never have the relationship, so he shouldn't forget about her. Of course he doesn't. And she sticks around for a few issues. For example, here in Adventures of the Unknown 157, she's still around, and she is able to she's able to help Nemesis save the world from someone by the name of Ticking. Oops. I can't read the name I wrote, but he's got a double T. I apologize. I have doctor's handwriting, so it's really hard sometimes to read what I'm saying. So basically, this gentleman wants to take over the world, and he steals the girl in order to stop Nemesis. Now, Nemesis, of course, we see as on the cover, he's in underwater, which is one of his weaknesses. So he's about to actually be destroyed by the big octopus there because, you know, tentacles. And he manages to escape, of course, with the help of Lita and defeat the bad guy and ends up rescuing her. And all is well as, again, moves on. We go to Adventures into the Unknown 160. Now, this is I want to say, a slightly insensitive cover, but the villains in this issue are Red China, because can't always be the Russians when it's the Cold War. And in this one, Nemesis is fighting a person by the name of Smilin' Vic Verboten. Smilin' Vic Verboten is a singer by day and evil genius by night who is trying to take over the world. In this case, he is trying to do it by becoming president. He runs his own party, of course, and this party is full, their emblem is a brown shirt. I wonder where that reference comes from yet again. And in this case, Nemesis is asked by the U.S. government to try and stop this. Nemesis himself, as Steve Trent, is a Korean War veteran, so because Red China's involved, he's quick to help out. And if there's any doubt Red China's involved, again, look at this cover. He gives them a big, big hit. And of course, you know, he stops Vic. Who was trying to sell secrets to the Chinese that led to bombs. And all is well in the world again. Next up, I have issue 163. 163, Lita is no longer in the book by this point. But here is the cover. It is this great big hand. This hand has come from to try and help out Nemesis, because there were some issues here where a gentleman by the name of Melview Silk is trying to take over a submarine and sell it to the Chinese. Now, he manages to get the submarine. He manages to meet with the Chinese, but Nemesis, through the work of his own and through some intervention from up there, manages to stop this, to sink the submarine, to stop it from falling into Chinese hands, and thus saving the day again. Now, Nemesis was the cover and the lead of the feature for most of his appearances. However, in Adventures in the Unknown 168, he is not there. And when he returns for 2 more issues, he is no longer the front feature. He's been regulated to the back, and he does not get the covers anymore. For example, I have those last 2 issues, and we've got sorry, I have the last of the issues. This is Adventures of the Unknown 167, which is the last issue where he is on the cover. Here you can see that he's grown to take over and try and help. Yet again, the Red Chinese are trying to steal something that they can use to destroy America. This time it's plutonium. And a Russian spy manages to get his hand on a bunch of plutonium and tries to, he works for the Americans first of all, but so he steals it, goes to South America with the plutonium. The Americans are trying to go get him to get the plutonium back. They don't know that Red China has discovered the location of this plutonium, and are sending a SWAT team of their own to try and get the plutonium for themselves, because Red China needs it to show the world how good communism is, apparently. There is a guy in there that they actually use Mao Zedong, and they make a really, really bad caricature of the character. It makes it, as usual, they're not as sensitive as we would be today. But anyway, here is the cover. The reason that he's big is that Nemesis uses yet another unknown power until this one to become large, and he goes in and wrecks the South American base of the Russian spy, only to realize that base is also under attack by the Chinese. So he manages to mop up with everybody. He ends the Chinese. He grabs the bad guy and brings him back to America to serve trial, and which seems to be a theme in Nemesis stories. The guy either escapes or he dies. You never really get, you very rarely get closure with the villains in Nemesis. It's the way it was written. It seems that they wanted to make sure everybody was available, yet there were only 1 or 2 repeating villains in the whole run of the 16 stories that Nemesis was actually in during this run. And now, this is the last issue of Adventures of the Unknown 170 that Nemesis is in. As you can see, as I said, he's no longer the lead feature, nor is he the cover. This is a very awesome cover for a different story. It's got a ghost of a old Minuteman type guy, and the front story was pretty interesting to read as well. It was called Lance Lenning Lunatic, and the reason it was is this gentleman Lance here was seeing things, and people thought he was nuts, but the truth was the ghost was coming to save some people, and as a result, Lance does it, and he's no longer insane and manages to marry his nurse. What a nice ending. But in this case, the Nemesis story, the villain is a person by the name of Mary Andrew, and Mary Andrew was kidnapping the son of a very rich man in order to get, the usual ransom and become rich himself. So Mary Andrew manages to get the boy by the name of Alonzo, and Nemesis saves Alonzo. This happens pretty early in the story. Well, what happens is that Mary Andrew continues to keep trying to get Alonzo, and Nemesis keeps thwarting that. And in the end, it turns out that there's a twist, and For those that are not going to read the book, I will tell you, for those that want to read it, cut off and come back with us 30 seconds from now. Basically, Alonzo it created a robot by the name of Mary Andrew to kidnap him because he's trying to get the ransom money off his dad so that he can live the life of Riley and not be under his father's thumb anymore. And like every other Nemesis villain, he escapes jail at the end. Since this is the end of the Nemesis run, though, we don't see him ever again. Outside of this series, Nemesis only made 2 other appearances. Both of them were team ups with Magic Man in the Forbidden Worlds run, in his Forbidden Worlds run, which was running around the same time as this, and so he's been reprinted a few times, but not everything has been reprinted, and it's mostly in books where they have a bunch of other stories from ACG and they've kind of mixed them all together. Now, Nemesis was created by a gentleman by the name of Richard Hughes, who used the pen name Shane O'Shea when it came to this feature. So just about every story is written by Shane O'Shea. And the artist for the vast majority of the work is a guy by the name of Pete Costanza. And for 3 issues, there was a gentleman by the name of Chick Stone who did the art. Now, both of them were their own names. However, almost every Nemesis cover was done by artist Kurt Schaffenberger, who is better known for doing Lois Lane for DC Comics. Now, Kurt didn't want DC to know that he was moonlighting on this side, so he did the vast majority of his work here under his pen name of Lou Lal, and Lal is spelled L-A-H-L. Basically, if you come across any cover that looks like familiar to you because of Schaffenberger, and it says Lou Lal, it is Schaffenberger, and because of him, most of these covers are actually they're fantastic. I've shown every cover that I've shown here is a Schaffenberger one, including the issue where it's the army guy who is a coward. I'm just showing you everything one more time. I particularly like this cover. I think it shows everything great because the ray can be primarily used from the story is primarily used as a freeze ray, and the way that it shapes and goes around, I just think that this is a great cover by Schaffenberger. And here's the first appearance again. There's never an explanation as to why he has a timepiece on his or an hourglass on his uniform. It just seems like that is how the original artist decided to draw him, because it's the same with like it's not really hard per se to tell. Everybody knows that Trent is dead, so people who encounter Trent later know that there's something fishy because Trent's body was there. They did bury it, and therefore it's weird that he's still around. Now, Adventures into the Unknown as a title itself only lasted 4 more issues after Nemesis's run finished, which was kind of sad because as it was the original pre-code horror book that was done on a monthly basis, it had a place in comics history. I'm glad that it did, and I have other issues of Adventures of the Unknown, earlier issues where they were doing. Now, I don't have any pre-code yet, but I do have some of the Tamer stuff, and even the Tamer stuff is almost as good as DC's stuff that was in House of Mystery and Mysteries in Space, etc. at the time. The sci-fi was decently written. Now, ACG, of course, had a reputation for, while not being as badly paid as Charlton, they did not pay their artists much better. They did pay their writers a little better because most of the writers, for example, like Robert Sorry, like the one here, Richard. Oh my God, my memory. Like Richard Hughes here. Richard Hughes doubled as an editor as well, so he was making pretty decent money to stay here at American Comics Group. American Comics Group overall, their books more than not are good, and it is a company that I'm getting into and I really like, and I hope that I'm able to teach you a little bit today about it. I really like them, and I hope other people pick up on them. I find that some of the books are undervalued. The pre-code stuff is not. The pre-code stuff is just as valuable as the other horror books. But the postcode, it should be worth a slightly more than it actually is on places like My Comic Shop. You can get most of the books between $10 and $20 American, depending on condition, of course, and availability. Anyway, if you liked what I've done today, please like, subscribe, comment. In fact, I'd love to hear your comments if you've heard of Nemesis before, if you think he's too much of a Spectre ripoff, or if he's better than the Spectre, for example. I just want to hear from you. If you like the video, if you didn't like the video, if you'd like to see more videos like this, if you'd like me to just show more comics and not talk as much, let me know. Anyway, like, subscribe, and comment below. I hope you've all had a wonderful day. Thank you very much for spending some time with me. My name is Matt. I like comics.